Welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast, where this evening we will be discussing Tottenham's 1-1 draw against Nice in the exhibition game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Matt Doherty on the score sheet yet again for Tottenham Hotspur. I am proud to say that we are now part of the TalkSport fan network. I've got three very special guests to talk about tonight's game and the transfer window, and of course preview the Brentford game that will take place in a couple of days' time on Boxing Day back in the Premier League. We've got Craig back with us. Craig, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks, Chris. It seems ages since we've talked about anything Spurs on here, and it's great to almost be back. I think we can say we're back, can't we? Because we're doing one of these. But yeah, seems like ages. Great World Cup, thoroughly enjoyed it. But let's get back to the Premier League now and Tottenham.
Absolutely. We've also got channel regular Melvin back with us. Melvin, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. It's we're about to discuss a weird pre-season. I think one of the shortest pre-seasons we will ever discuss.
Yes.
A couple of weeks old, and a strange season, a strange, footballing calendar, and it's going to be interesting to see what Conte and Spurs are going to be like, when they return.
Absolutely. Well, I'm delighted to say that we've got Mitch with us for the very first time. Mitch, thanks so much for joining us. You're part of the media team at Colchester United and, of course, Tottenham Hotspur fan and a sports writer for LiveScore. Welcome to the channel.
Cheers, Chris. No, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to come on and chat Spurs, which I love to do with you guys. So, yeah, it felt weird sitting down and sticking a Spurs game on this evening, but it was a welcome return, really. And, yeah, looking forward to the season finally getting back underway after what seems like a lifetime of it not being there. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, a good World Cup, and of course a great World Cup for Christian Romero picking up a World Cup winners medal. Mitch, let's start the show with you. Tottenham Hotspur won, Nice won. Doherty on the score sheet yet again. What did you make of tonight's game?
I think it was. I think it's about all you can expect from a weird sort of pre-season-esque fixture shoved in the middle of December, really. It was not the best game in the world. I don't think anybody was expecting it to light the world on fire, but I think it served its purpose. You got a few first team and starting 11 regulars getting some good minutes in their legs. The likes of Kulis and Son coming back in, Eric Dyer as well, who's seemed to have returned a bit sooner than Harry Kane, which is nice to see. But yeah, it was a pretty average game. It's nice to see the likes of Matt Doherty, who seems to be thriving in while everyone else was away in Qatar. But yeah, pretty good game. Doesn't really matter that we didn't win it in the end, but yeah, overall I think it served its purpose, and I guess we just use it more as a warm up for that game on Boxing Day.
Yeah, completely agree. Craig, let's come to you. Your thoughts on tonight's match?
Yeah, echo really what Mitch said there. I mean, it was a friendly. It was just basically getting minutes in the legs of all the players. It was good to see a few of the first teamers get a run out and some minutes. Seeing Sonny come on, that was great. The crowd give him a nice welcome there. So yeah, can't read too much into the performance or the result. Either way, even if we'd smashed them 5-0, I think it just is what it is. But it's great to see Tottenham back, and let's hope that they take the positives from tonight into Brentford, because we've got a run of tough games coming up.
What do you make of these friendlies that we've been playing in the last couple of weeks, though, Craig? Because we played Motherwell, then Peterborough under 21s, which both games were behind closed doors, and of course this evening's game against Nice. Would you have liked to have seen, no disrespect to these sides, but would you have liked to have seen more of a test for our Spurs players?
I think tonight was probably more of a test with respect to the other teams that we've played. It was a bit sterner test, but to be honest, I think it's just all about trying to get the players into match situations as best they can, and just getting minutes in the legs, as I say. So you can't read really too much into it, but keeping the players ticking over in match situations, I think was the key. I don't think you'd have got many of the top teams wanting friendlies with other top teams, and I consider us one of those. So it's always going to be difficult, but as I say, the players have got minutes in the legs. And, it sounds like Conte's been working the ones that have been left behind there quite hard. So they're going to be fit. They're going to hopefully be ready for Boxing Day.
It was so weird, actually, this evening at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium not to see Antonio Conte so vocal and running down the touchline as we normally see during competitive games. Melvin, let's come to you. Your thoughts on tonight's game?
Yeah, it was a tidy game. You can kind of see, Antonio's impression being put on the fringe players that haven't played a lot this season. Good to see Tanganga play. He's a decent centre back when he has a run of games. We all saw what he was capable last season with performances against Liverpool and City. He's been so unlucky with injuries, and it's good time to have one of the best managers and coaches and have this time and this opportunity to train under him, and you can kind of see the time on the pitch being translated onto the performances. I liked how we looked solid in possession. We didn't look as vulnerable and shaky as we used to when we used to play this kind of team and this kind of formation. It used to be the case when you drop 3 or 4 players out of the team, under Jose and Nuno, and when you play these kind of teams, the drop in quality was massive, and I didn't see it today. I thought we looked decent with the ball. Bissouma looked extremely sharp and hungry, and and I enjoyed it. Pepe Mata looks like a decent young talent, very raw. The same with Brian Hill. It's great to see all these players trying to fight, and you can see that they're learning their system and how to play. It was interesting to see Harvey White being played up top. So
let's go through the starting 11. It was Forster, Royale, Tanganga, Sanchez, Doherty, Lenglet, Bissouma, Højbjerg, Kulusevski, White, and Brian Hill. Now, Antonio Conte did confirm before the game that Spence and Skip missed the game through illness. Mitch, let's come to you. I want to talk a little bit about Jed Spence, because there's so many Spurs fans really hoping that he's going to get game time in the Premier League for Spurs this season. An unfortunate time to be ill, isn't it? Because you would hope that he would be taking opportunities in these games to really put himself in the window for Conte to choose him.
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing him tonight. So it's a bit of a shame with the whole illness, because I thought he was probably our best, if not one of the best players in the friendly against Motherwell that we watched last week or whenever it was. But it's sort of been a weird one around the whole Jed Spence thing, because I think most of the fan base are in agreement that he should be getting more minutes than he is. We don't know whether he was, I guess, a Conte signing or whether he actually approved it in the first place. So you never know. There might be something going on behind the scenes there. But every Spurs fan knows that he is capable of good things. He is a top player and can go on to be a very good player if he is given that opportunity. So it's a shame that he's missed tonight, because I think maybe he would have got 45 minutes and maybe Emerson Royale would have got 45 minutes. Who, Emerson Royale was pretty much the same old Emerson that he has been for most of the season tonight, I thought. But the hope is that he is the type of player that can just get his head down and work hard and just follow the lead of some of the more senior figures at the club. And when that chance does come and that opportunity does come, because there will be a situation where he gets minutes on the pitch, whether it be through injuries or he's just impressing on Conte that much, he just needs to take it, because I've no doubt in my mind that he's got the ability to be a really important player for us, even if we do end up bringing in another right-sided defender in the January market. So hopefully he just keeps his head up. The illness is a bit unfortunate, but hopefully there's more to come from him.
Mitch, in your opinion, who is the best right wing back at Spurs? Because when you look at Doherty in the 3 friendlies that we've played, he scored in every single one of them. Emerson played on the right today. Doherty played on the left this evening. Spence, what do you make of the whole situation with Jed Spence, and as I say, who do you think is the best right wing back if we didn't bring in another one in the January window? Who would you go with?
I think right this second, Matt Doherty would be my pick as your starting right wing back. I think if Jed Spence had an opportunity to play and had played, at least 90 minutes of Premier League football this season, I'd like to say him, but I don't think that I can really back that up with any sort of evidence right now. having watched Doherty obviously for a bit longer and knowing what he's capable of, seeing how well he's performed in the friendlies while everyone else has been at the World Cup, and especially how he played towards the end of last season, he was a bit unfortunate because he picked up an injury, and I think that set him back a little bit, where it meant Emerson came back into the team. But before that, I think he was Conte's #1 pick, and I think that he showed that he's certainly a lot better going forward than Emerson. Defensively, maybe it's a bit of a toss-up between the pair. I don't think any of our right wing backs are amazing at defending, but if I had to pick one, Matt Doherty would be that person, and he is certainly the person I would be playing at right wing back from the go against Brentford.
Craig, let's come to you. Overall, in these 3 friendlies against Motherwell, Peterborough and Nice this evening, what have you made of the performances? Who do you think has really put themselves, out in front to say, Antonio, choose me for Premier League minutes?
To be honest, you can't really look much past Matt Doherty. I mean, he's like the Irish Cafu, as I've seen on Twitter. He's been banging in the goals. He's been playing well from what I've seen. So yeah, I have to agree with Mitch. To be honest, I'd love to say Jed Spence, because I do truly believe, and I have done ever since we signed him, that he's the future in that right wing back role for Tottenham. I think he's got every attribute you could ask for a wing back. But I have to say, Matt Doherty's, what he's been doing, he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet, I think, against Brentford. Now, what Conte might see, put him on the left because he's been playing on the left, and I've just got a feeling he's going to put Emerson in on the right. We don't know. We don't know, do we? I think Brian Hill has put in a couple of decent performances. I'd have liked to see Will Lancashire actually get a few more minutes today. I'd have liked to have seen him. It's a shame he only got on right at the end. I thought Harvey White performed pretty well tonight. So there is a few players. I think Tanganga's got a shout for that the right side of the back 3, because obviously Romero, we don't know what's happening with him yet when he's coming back, and I don't think he's going to be ready for Boxing Day. He's probably on a 4 or 5 day drinking bender with all the other Argentinians, and absolutely fully deserved. But yeah, there's certainly a few players that hopefully have caught Conte's eye. But coming on to Jed Spence, I hope Jed Spence is one of them, because I think he played pretty well in the games he did play.
Yeah. What about Brian Hill? Do you expect Brian Hill to go out on loan in January, or do you think that he's got a chance of more minutes in the Premier League?
It's difficult. I've always liked Brian Hill. I think there's a player in there, but it depends what Conte thinks, doesn't it, at the end of the day? But I think Brian Hill will probably go on loan. I think they'll try and look to loan him out for the rest of the season. But yeah,
I don't know what you guys think, but Sanchez captain tonight. I know it's only a friendly, but I just thought that was a bit of a weird one, don't you?
Yeah, it was. It was a bit strange, and he had he had one of them games, I think, in patches that we've seen Davies have before quite a few times. It was a weird one, wasn't it? Because you'd have thought Højbjerg or even Forster. It's a very weird decision. I don't get that. If anybody's got any thoughts on that, please put them in the comments, because I was a bit baffled by that. So I'd be interested to hear people's views. But yes, very strange.
Melvin, who was the standout players for you this evening?
I guess Doherty, because he scored. He's the only real, even Kulusevski as well. I think Kulusevski was a big miss. Having him back, and he always have an eye for a pass. You can never really give him a second on the ball. If he's not creating something, he's going to finish it off. And he's so clever. If he's not going to make a run, he uses his body well and disguises a pass. A bit lucky with the deflection, and it made his way to Doherty, and he finished it. And he had a similar chance a few minutes earlier, and he buried the second one. It's great to see him pick off where he left off last season. He was in good scoring and assisting form. So it's exactly what we need going into, I guess or continuing the Premier League. We need these kind of players to hit a bit of form and kind of pick up where I guess we left off last Premier League fixture. We were in good form. Bentancur was scoring. Højbjerg was scoring, and Kulusevski was just coming back from a really, really long injury, and he fits into the system so well. So it's really exciting to see these players starting to gel together again and pick up where we left off.
Melvin, I know we'll come on to preview the Brentford game, but I want to ask the question, with Matt Doherty in good form in these 3 friendlies, I think I'm with Craig. I'm expecting Emerson Royale to be in the starting 11 against Brentford on Boxing Day. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, he has to be. I think out of the 3 right backs we have, he's played the most minutes under Conte, even though he's not been the most effective, but he's played the most minutes. He's been solid. He can do a job defensively. It's when we need, to attack and we need that the breakthrough goal is where he struggles. But he's still a solid defender. Let's be honest. He's just the attacking, the final third. He's good at the right back, but not quite the right wing back. That's why I guess Matt Doherty, I think he's more adapted to that role quicker than him, and he's played it for a longer period of time. And I think playing on the left, he can cut in and shoot from his right. So he's a bit more effective than Emerson. But I think, yeah, both of them will probably start, and Conte keeps playing Doherty on the left because he knows he's not going to have Perisic. He knows Sessegnon is recovering from injury and probably won't be rushed for that fixture because we need him for the remainder of the season.
Mitch, let's come to you. I just want to ask you your thoughts on Bryan Gil overall, because of course he cost a lot of money. Eric Lamela went in the other direction as well. He's had very limited time under Antonio Conte. Do you expect him to go out on loan? And what have you made of his time at Spurs so far?
I think it's a really difficult one to call with whether he's going to go out on loan or not, because I think you can see that there's a player there. And I think he showed it again tonight. His ability on the ball, his dribbling, and the way he likes to run at people, I actually think is really good. I just think the physical side of his game lets him down. He was on the floor a lot against tonight, and I know we were playing against French opposition, but it's a really difficult one. I think that if he does go out on loan, that'll be the last we see of him. Unfortunately, I'm kind of hoping that he does stay because I think that he's got a point to prove, and I do think that he can add some value to the squad, especially with Richarlison obviously having that injury and being out for 5 to 6 weeks. I think we're going to need him. The Christmas schedule is very, very hectic, and January as well. We've got obviously that midweek game against Man City to catch up on as well. So that there's going to be a lot of games and a lot of tired legs, even for those that have been at Hotspur way over the winter break. So in terms of his ability, he shows glimpses of what we signed him for. I think his close dribbling is fantastic, and he's got the ability to go past anyone if he really wants to. Sometimes it looks like he just does a little bit too much. Maybe holds on to it a bit longer than he should, maybe picks the wrong pass instead of maybe having a shot or playing it the other way. But I can see him going out on loan. I can see Conte maybe just being a bit impatient and wanting the club to bring in someone else and maybe a different attacking player and send him out on loan for 6 months or even an 18-month loan, and he might not be at the club when he gets back. So then that's not his problem. So it's an interesting one. I'd like to see him play. I think he's got something to give, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if he does head out in January.
Surely, though, Mitch, if Spurs were or want to keep him long term, the loan move has to be an English club. Because I think if he goes to a European club, I think I'm with you that I don't think that we're going to see him under Conte. Yeah,
absolutely. And I would say that he's good enough to play in the Premier League at a different club on loan. The question is who takes him. Are there realistically... The issue is, if you go and send him to a club that's fighting relegation, someone like probably not a Nottingham Forest, but someone down in that area,
West Ham.
Are they going to want? Yeah, West Ham. That's a good one. That's the one I was looking for. Is it a player that they're going to want? Is that the sort of player that's going to aid a sort of recovery and a bid for survival? And if we send him to someone that are maybe pushing in around the top 10, top 13. Like not necessarily a Crystal Palace, but a club of perhaps that stature and that quality. Again, is he going to get the game time? Is he going to be in that starting 11? So it's a really difficult one. I'm not surprised that a lot of Spanish clubs seem interested in him. But you are right, and I do agree with you. If he does go on loan, I would very much like to see him at an English club to let him develop, especially the physical part of his game, a bit more.
Yeah. Craig, let's come to you. Let's talk about some of the key incidents in the game. Now, just after 5 minutes, Forster made a great save with his right hand, tipping it around the post. After 11 minutes, Kulusevski couldn't find the right pass. Brian Hill was waiting in the middle. A couple of minutes later, and we've spoken a lot about free kicks on this channel, Kulusevski with a free kick outside the box straight at Schmeichel. After 19 minutes, Doherty and Brian Hill with a nice move, cross from Brian Hill, blocked and cleared. And then after 21 minutes, Doherty beating Spurs 1-0 up. What a great finish. Talk us through that goal, because we're getting used to Doherty scoring at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. He's finished another well taken goal. Brian Hill actually passed it to Kulusevski, who obviously laid in the ball to Doherty. A bit of a defensive error. The defender kind of got his feet all mixed up and it broke into Doherty's path. But he finished it very well. It looked like he was going to put it to the keeper's left and he just whipped it in at the near post. So, yeah, another great finish. What I would say, I come back to giving players confidence. The goals Matt Doherty's been scoring lately, even though they have been in friendlies, it's all about the confidence. And, I think if he gets in those positions, hopefully starting against Brentford, then he's going to have that confidence to have a shot where before he might have looked for a pass or it might have gone over the bar or something like that. So it's all good. It can only be good that your wing backs are scoring, because that's what Conte wants. Yeah,
absolutely. After 29 minutes, Brian Hill cutting in with a shot with his right foot. After 37 minutes, Brian Hill with another shot at Schmeichel this time. Good pass from Doherty. After 39 minutes, Basuma with a shot from outside the box. Half-time 1-0. Melvin, what did you make of Basuma's performance today? Because, of course, he's been a fantastic midfielder for Brighton. He's had a difficult season under Conte at Spurs so far this season. How does he break into this starting 11 when we've got Højbjerg and Bentancur playing the way that they are?
He's an asset to the team because, if Conte wants to change the system mid-game, he's a really good player to bring in. If he wants to go 2 in the middle or 3 in the middle, it's a good option to have, if he needs to change something tactically. And in the last couple of games before the Premier League stopped, he was playing really, really well. And he's a good player to have in and out of the squad, because he did it during the game. He won the ball really high up and on the pitch, and we counter-attacked. But because we had, players like Harvey White, and no disrespect to them, but maybe if you think Kane was there and you had Son flying forward as well, you think it could have resulted in a goal, because that's what he's for. It's the energy and the pressing that he does, and it can win you games, because those sort of things end up in mistakes from the opposition, which leads to goals. And you can definitely tell he's capable of doing that once or twice a game, and you can't give us those chances, for the entire match. If you give us 1 or 2, Kane or Son are going to put them away. And that's what he's capable of. And he's a really good asset to have for Conte, because you never know in a game when it's not quite going your way, or if he starts, he's a good player to have. It's a player we didn't have, obviously, the last couple of seasons, is to have more quality on the bench. The depth is slowly starting to increase, and Basuma definitely is Premier League proven quality on the bench. And even if he starts, which I think because of the injuries to Bentancur, he's going to have to really, we're going to have to win with him. You know what I mean? Because we need to keep up the momentum that we stopped a couple of months ago. We need to keep winning. We can't drop points. And he's going to have to put in a real shift against Brentford, because it's going to be a tough game, and we definitely need the 3 points.
Now, half-time, of course, Spurs were leading the game 1-0. Sarr came on, Højbjerg come off. Mitch, let's come to you. What have you made of Pepe Mata Sarr's time at Spurs? Because no Premier League minutes under Conte this season. But of course, as we all know, he played the second half against England for Senegal. Do you think he will be going out on loan, or do you think that Conte will perhaps give him more minutes?
He's very much in the same boat as Brian Gil, isn't he? He's you can tell that there's a player in there, and he's just not really being afforded the opportunity to showcase that. And I know the Premier League and playing at a club like Spurs is brutal, and if you're not good enough, then you're not going to play. I think he is one that would benefit from going out on loan, which I don't necessarily agree with about Brian Gil. I think Sarr being out on loan, it doesn't even necessarily have to be in England, just getting minutes under his belt because he's such a young player. I mean, he proved what he can do in the French league, and maybe just a little bit of a step up from there if he were to go back out on loan. But I think he showed glimpses tonight of what he's capable of, and at the World Cup, although it was limited minutes for him there as well. I think he's got a very good stature and build for sort of central midfield role. I know that he prides himself on abilities of things like long shots and his long distance shooting that we're sort of yet to see in a Spurs shirt, but that'd be something quite nice to see sooner rather than later. But again, I think he's another one that may actually end up seeing a few more minutes over the Christmas period if we continue picking up these sort of injuries, and if you haven't got all the players coming back that we need. There's the option of rotation. You've got Højbjerg and Basuma, and depending, I guess, on whether Bentancur can get back sooner rather than later from his injury, there's a potential opportunity there, even if it starts off with appearances from the bench. Once that opportunity is there, if he takes it and puts in a decent little cameo, then the way football works is that you'll be rewarded with more appearances. And again, I hope that's the case, but he's got a long old career ahead of him, and he's someone that we should be holding on to, but wouldn't be opposed to him going out for another loan whatsoever.
Mitch, let's stay with you. In the 47th minute, Nice equalised, making it 1-1. What did you make of the goal that we conceded? Because it seemed really disappointing to concede a goal so early on in the second half as well. Yeah,
set piece. It's just something I think we're a bit accustomed to as Spurs fans. The first half was pretty decent. I think we played well, dominated most of the game, particularly in large spells at least. And then you come out in the second half, you make that change with Højbjerg coming off, and he does make a big difference in the middle of midfield, and you concede almost immediately. And I know it's only a friendly, and I know it's to get minutes in people's legs, but it does have an impact. You are still in a game of football, and all of a sudden the momentum sort of swings out your favour, and it takes the steam out of you a little bit. And yeah, it was just pretty poor defending. Needs to have some big players, especially Dante. He's a big lad to keep a hold of. And it was sort of just a bit of the same old story, pinball in the box, not clearing your lines, and you get punished for it. And from then, there wasn't too much of a entertainment, I guess I would say, for the remainder of the game. It was pretty much a stalemate. And it's one of those goals, if you concede it in the Premier League, you're probably quite angry because it's just such a silly goal to give away. The timing of it as when it is in the game, and just the fact that it's a goal that you shouldn't be conceding. Everybody has a job marking from things like set pieces and corners, and you've got to do that job, and if you don't, you get punished against the top players. And unfortunately that's what happened tonight.
Craig, in the 49th minute, Kulusevski with a shot, Schmeichel with a great save to his right-hand side. And then in the 55th minute, Kulusevski with a cross, Emerson Royale headed towards goal, Schmeichel with a comfortable save. Great to have Kulusevski back. And I tell you what, I think that, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club are really going to benefit Kulusevski not going away at the World Cup. And, he's been working extremely hard Hotspur way. It is great to have him back, isn't it? Because he's had injury issues this season.
Yeah, it is. I think we all saw how much we missed him when he wasn't playing because of the injury. And again, I reiterate, just seeing players get minutes in their legs in game situations. It's great to see Kulusevski come through that injury free. He kind of makes us tick, doesn't he? A lot of what he does, he just makes us tick. You saw that as soon as he came back from injury, he's creating chances and everything else. So, yeah, what a signing! And I think he's 22 himself, isn't he? So he's only a young player, but he seems there's an old head on young shoulders, and he just seems to know when to release the ball, knows what passes to make, and knows when to shoot, and cutting in on that left foot. He's a quality player, absolute quality player. And to be fair, before the window last January, I'd never actually heard of him, I don't think, and or Bentancur. So, those two players coming in, what a difference they've both made.
We need more Juventus rejects in this coming
We
January.
do. We'll have them. We'll have them all. Yeah,
definitely. Melvin, let's come to you. In the 59th minute, Emerson Royale had time, space, just could not find Kulusevski in the middle. It went straight to a defender, was obviously blocked. What did you make of Emerson Royale's performance this evening?
It's not the best performance he's had at Spurs, but it's definitely not the worst either. I think he's one of the players that could really use this time with Conte. I think they probably worked on things in the training pitch, even though there's rumors of us, looking at right backs and stuff like that. He's still a Tottenham player, and he needs to improve, and hopefully this time will make him improve. His decision making sometimes isn't the best, and but he's still a solid defender, and the things that he does well, his physicality, his defending, his aerial doings, he always does, pretty well, and doesn't make the mistakes that lead to goals, which is something that I think previous right backs we used to struggle with. Hopefully, I don't know if the club is really thinking of buying a new right wing back or not, but if we stay with him, last season he did pretty well till the end of the season, but he needs to start to chip in with goals and assists, something that the midfielders like Bentancur and Højbjerg started to do. They didn't really do that last season, but it's something that you can see that they worked on in the training pitch, and it's starting to work during the game. So we kind of need to see that from Emerson Royale as well. I don't know how long you can really give a player, because he's had his chance and he's had games and he's had time to work on it. I think now till the end of the season, if he doesn't have at least a couple of goals and assists in key moment, in key games, I think it's really time to give up on the player, because the Conte system is so demanding on the wing backs. I don't think we can afford having one side of the wing backs not producing any goals or any assists. Kind of like on the other side, Sessegnon and Perisic both chip in with the odd goal and assist every now and then. So we need to have balance within the squad. So realistically, if he doesn't have, I don't know, 3 or 4 goals or a couple of assists, I don't see it working with Spurs.
Mitch, do you think it's fair to say that the right wing back situation is probably our weakest area?
Yes, and the reason I say that is just because of how dependent Antonio Conte is on his wing backs. I think you've seen from Perisic on the other side what a competent and attacking-minded wing back can do. I mean, some of his assists this season have made a big difference over on that left side, and it's been pretty null over on the other flank, and that is something that really needs addressing. I just feel like we've been waiting for Emerson Royale to sort of click and just start providing some assists or scoring some goals. Matt Doherty is the closest thing we've had to a wing back that is capable of doing something in the final third. So it's definitely a problem area, and it would be top of my list. And I think it is top of Conte's list. I think he's done what he can to try and work with Emerson and try and improve him, especially in that crossing area, which just doesn't seem to have made much of a difference at all. But yeah, it's something that I'm hoping is at the top of his list for the January window, and all of these rumours floating around Pedro Porro and a few other names as well. I'm hoping that there's some sort of concrete link to them. And, if we can go into the second half of the season, or well, we're not even halfway yet, but into that part of the season with Perisic on one side and another wing back that, you know, can replicate the sort of Alonso, Moses or Hakimi from Inter Milan on that right hand side that Conte utilised so well, we will become a much more prolific team and just a better all round team. So hopefully that is a priority position. It is in my eyes, and hopefully there's some work going on behind the scenes to try and sort it out.
It is certainly in my eyes as well, Mitch. But I've got to ask the question: you don't think that Conte can get any more out of Emerson?
The thing is, what is he? He's 22 or 23, Emerson, so he's still really young. So that would suggest that there's capability for him to improve. But I just think he's been given so much favour from Conte, and I'm not sure if he just doesn't think that Doherty's been up to scratch or what the issue is with Spence, whether it's the only option he's got. But I just think he's been playing week in, week out for Spurs, and he's just not given us anything going forward. You know, you've got the occasional no-look pass that's going out for a goal kick, or you've got errors at the back. So I struggle to come up with anything sort of successful that he's been able to do in the final third in particular. I mean, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, if there's anything you've picked up, but I haven't seen anything. And when you want to be challenging for trophies and titles, you have to be ruthless. And if something's not working and you're getting on to the point where it's been 2 seasons of him at right back now and he's still not giving us anything, you've got to sort of think about cutting your losses. Yeah.
Craig, let's come to you. In the 66th minute, Davies and Dyer came on, of course, coming back from international duty at the World Cup in Qatar, Lenglet and Sanchez going off. Great to see Davies back, because we thought that he had injury problems, but of course Antonio Conte confirmed in the last couple of days that he's back training. We're back playing this evening. Davies has been a regular under Conte since he arrived last November, an important player for this squad.
Yeah, I've always thought Ben Davies was I think he's been called 7 out of 10 Ben before, hasn't he? You know, you never really see him have an absolute shocker. I personally don't see that anywhere. You know, he seems to be pretty solid in most things he does. You know, he's not one of the big names. Essentially, you don't see him. He's plastered all over the newspapers. But he's apparently a very popular member of the squad. Clever guy, nice lad. And trains well and always gives 110% when he plays for Tottenham. I think that's all you can ask. I think Ben Davies is quite an underrated player, actually. There's other players that need to leave, in my opinion, long before Ben Davies, and it is good to see him back. Didn't have the best of World Cups, obviously, but yeah, I think he's a very important player in that back three, to be honest.
You talk about the World Cup there, Craig. Who were you really impressed with? What Spurs player at the World Cup are you most impressed with?
Oh, well, you can't look much past Romero. You know, I had to laugh, I must admit, in the final and the semi-final when he's just slinging in tackles, and like the commentators obviously aren't perhaps as used to seeing Romero as we Spurs fans are, and he just plays 200% all the time, doesn't he? He's going through players, winning the ball. He's an unbeliever. He's a Rolls Royce of defender, and I just hope he's back playing for Spurs as soon as possible. I thought Perisic had a really good World Cup, to be honest. I thought he played sensational in parts. I think I saw every game Croatia played, and he was just great. Actually, wasn't he playing? He wasn't really a wing back, was he? He was kind of one of a front three, so he's certainly a bit more advanced anyway, wasn't he? So. But the crosses he was putting in up and down, the minutes he got played was for a guy his age just shows how fit he is. So I have to say he had a good World Cup. So I'd have to say them two. Obviously a shame about Harry. I don't really want to talk about what happened with Harry at the end. I just hope that doesn't affect him too much. I think he was having a half decent World Cup up until that point, and. I think that would have been a lot different had that penalty gone in. And I think we got past France. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I think if we got past France, I think we'd have made it to the final, with all respect to Morocco. But, all in the past now. And hopefully we'll come back to Tottenham. And hopefully we'll get a penalty soon and he can put that ghost to bed, at least in a small way.
That would be nice, actually, on Boxing Day against Brentford. Yeah. Well, of course, we said earlier about Spence and Skip being ill for tonight's game, but of course, Harry Kane, Romero, Lloris, Richarlison, Perisic, Moura, and Bentancur all didn't feature this evening, and will be back at some point. Back to the game. In the 72nd minute, Kulusevski with a shot wide. A couple of minutes later, Mundle and Son coming on. White and Emerson Royale going off. Conte then made another change in the 80th minute. Alfie Devine coming on, Kulusevski going off. In the 86th minute, Pepe Mata with a tame shot at the goalkeeper. And then Lancashire coming on in the last minute. Melvin, let's come to you. I want to talk about all of the rumours about Antonio Conte and the transfer window. Now, The Athletic reported on Tuesday that they had heard that there's not much money to spend in the January transfer window, and sources close to the club are less optimistic about him signing a new contract. What do you make of this news and these rumours?
It's disappointing because I don't know, because the momentum, I think, from the summer, when we invested, the 150 million that was so famous, and Spurs Twitter went crazy, and we were all so excited, and we all thought, okay, we were really getting behind Conte, and we're all on board, and now that you hear that the board are not all pulling the same rope, we don't have the same ideas. Some people talking about Pochettino. It's not good to hear, especially mid-season as well. We're still in a Champions League knockout tie against AC Milan. We're ahead of a January transfer window, which we're looking, to back Conte with all the players that he wants. We, as Spurs fans, have been so patient with the club, and we've waited for so long, and we moved stadiums, which we all happy about, and we had to transition from one stadium to another with one of the greatest Spurs sides I've ever seen. That last season at White Hart Lane, we've gone through that, we've been through that, and now it's time to push and make sure that the squad is at its best, and to use all our assets to make sure that happens. The stadium and all this events, the boxing events, and all this kind of stuff. All this stuff has to, at the end of the day, be put in the squad, the first 11. We need the investment from Levy and Enoch, and if they're saying that Conte's ambition doesn't match what we're currently offering, he's gonna walk away, and it would be, I think, lots of Spurs fans would be extremely disappointed, and me being one of them. I messaged you when I heard that, and I said, I feel a little bit sick. I don't feel good about it. It's really, it in a way, it hurts the Spurs fan base, and I think it was a bit overboard how quickly the fans were. It's like we're a bit fragile. The news broke and it went crazy. I think maybe it could have been taken a little bit out of context. We don't know what demands Conte has, but at the same time, Conte has all the power in his hands, and he's a smart guy. If he wants certain things, and he's using the contract as this leverage, and unless Levy bows down to his demands, he can walk away, and he's done it before, and it would be extremely disappointing if he does.
Melbourne, regardless of what happens in the upcoming January transfer window, how confident are you that Antonio Conte will be Spurs manager next season?
Well, we have the one clause.
He's out of contract on the 30th of June. Why have the club not triggered the extra year on his contract as yet?
I think they're gonna wait until the January window plays out and see what happens. If we make decent signings which improve the starting 11, and we go deep into the Champions League, or we make top 4, which at this point is not a certainty. Last season we made top 4, in the summer we improved, but so have the teams around us. Arsenal have improved, so have Liverpool, Chelsea, City, Newcastle. That's an added mix to the equation. We're not only fighting with 6 really good teams now, there's about 7 who are pumping a lot of money into their squads. And if we don't match or go above their level of investment, we're not gonna make up the difference. We're gonna fall behind. And
Yeah.
Conte is a clever guy. He's not going to sign anything quickly. He holds all the power. And in a way, it's not a bad thing, because Levy knows every single Spurs fan right now loves Conte. We sing his name in the stadium. And, I've never seen, since he's come in, I've never seen us so united since Pochettino. The fan base have been so united, and it's been great. The games have been electric, some really, really good games. And I love Conte. I'm obsessed with the guy. I think he's brilliant. I love everything about him. I love his passion, his energy, and I want him to stay and continue this project that he started. It would be a shame if he leaves. It'd be a shame if we don't see him, at his full potential with players for his system. And I think with Paratici working together, they've done good signings. They have an eye for a player. Even the signings that failed, look at Luis Diaz, nearly came off last season, would have been a great signing. They have an eye for a player. And even Amrabat, who shined in the World Cup, he was a player that we're linked with last season, and could have been a Spurs player this season, and we would have had some of the best midfield players at the World Cup. I want to see another Antonio Conte Paratici transfer window, and I want to see it again in the summer, because I think them two working together is a good partnership. And if we back them fully and we offer them the funds, we can really see them push on. And together, if we all know what's wrong with the club, we're only a couple of players away from really competing, but they need to be, Antonio's players, so, not club signings. That's the issue, I think.
It's a weird one, actually, Amrabat, because in the last January transfer window, pretty much every day I was doing live shows with lots of journalists coming on, and they were all stating, including Fabrizio Romano, stating that Spurs are so close to signing Amrabat, and the Spurs fans were going absolutely mad, saying, "Who? I don't want Amrabat at my club. I've never heard of the guy." It's so strange. And then, of course, he turned out to be one of the best players in the World Cup in Qatar. Mitch, let's come to you. What do you make of the whole Antonio Conte situation? Because, Spurs could trigger his contract and sign him up for another year. What do you make of the whole situation?
It's a really strange one. I think if they were to trigger his extension, then it might come across as maybe like we're holding him there. Rather than him being willing to want to stand. No, it's obviously written into his contract, and that's what he signed in the first place. But I sort of think if you trigger the 1-year contract, that might be a sign that contract talks aren't going very well. Obviously, the club want to tie him down to a longer term contract if they can. But these things aren't easy. Antonio Conte is perhaps one of the most ruthless people in football when it comes to negotiating, and he's very straightforward with what he wants, and what he will want is a big budget to spend in every transfer window, and he will want to be constantly improving the squad. And if Daniel Levy and Fabio Paratici can't promise him that, then he's got no reason to stay. So I'm actually quite sympathetic towards him, because I think us as Spurs fans, we've been sort of led astray for quite a while now. We've sort of learned to accept mediocrity and just maybe being there or thereabouts, but never being at the top. And I think the biggest chance we're ever going to get to break that and sort of embed a new culture into the club, a winning culture, is by backing Antonio Conte. And the contract situation is really frustrating me, because in my opinion, I know it's easier said than done, they should just go in, accept his demands and move on from there. Let him be happy, and let him pick the players that he wants to bring in, and just go for it. it's really strange, these reports that are coming out about then maybe not being massive amounts of money to spend in January, and the club are not willing to throw money about. It doesn't make any sense to me. What's the point in having someone like Conte at the club if you're not going to let him make those suggestions and have the final say on the recruitment? So yeah, I think I agree with what Melvin was saying in terms of the whole January transfer window. I think the club will end up waiting and seeing what happens by the end of January, see what players are brought in, see what the mood is in the camp, see how we're doing in the league, and they'll go from there. I do just really think in my head that they are waiting for the perfect opportunity to bring Pochettino back to the club. I think it's going to happen at one point, whether Conte's here for another 2 years, whether he's here for another 6 months. I think Pochettino will be back in charge of the club at one point, which I think that whole situation also doesn't help, because you've got half the fan base sort of like, oh, whatever, just go get him already and just leave Conte be. It's not really working. But, you know, like I've already said, personally, Antonio Conte is one of the best managers I've seen at the club. And I think he's got the capabilities to do something really great, like he has at every other club that he's managed. And you just have to have that trust in him, and you have to take the risks. You're not going to achieve anything if you don't take the risks, and that includes spending money. You know, Tottenham are a giant of a football club, and they make a hell of a lot of money every single year. So, you know, you've got to reinvest that in the club, and if you do, it will give us the best chance to win something. So, yeah, hopefully in the next few months we'll have some clarity on the situation, and hopefully that clarity is that he has signed a new contract.
Mitch, if you had to put money on it, do you think Antonio Conte will be Spurs manager at the start of next season?
Yes, I do, which is good. I'm glad that the mindset is still like that. I do think that he will be the manager at the start of the next season. I think we'll get top 4 this season, and I think he will have one more summer window to bring in the players that he wants. And if it doesn't work by the end of next season, then it will probably be time for him to move on.
Mitch, what do you think is fully backing Conte? Because when I look back at the last January window, Bentancur and Kulusevski coming in, and I know on the 31st of January, at the end of that window, a lot of Spurs fans weren't happy with it because they thought that we had signed 2 Juventus rejects. But of course, they turned out to be fantastic. They're fantastic players, and they are players that walk straight into the starting 11. In my opinion, I think that we need another January window where we bring in at least 2 players that walk into the starting 11. Not players for the future, not players to sit on the bench, but actually walk into the starting 11. A right wing back, I think, is absolutely vital. Is that truly backing Conte by bringing 2 quality players in again?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I think you're absolutely right. We need players to improve the starting 11. We need a right wing back, and we need a centre back. Both of those 2 players that can come straight into our starting 11 and shore us up and just add a bit more to us. And yeah, I would describe that as fully backing him, especially in the January transfer window. That you're not going to be able to go out and sign 5 or 6 players and spend a hell of a lot of money in January. It's just never how it has worked. But that's, I guess, something more for the summer. But yeah, like I said before, fully backing him is just at least hearing out what he wants. I'm not expecting the club to go out and make 400 million pound signings, but you know, you've got to give him something to work with. And if you want to buy the best players and good players at this point in the season and in modern football, then they cost a lot of money. And you got to remember how close we were to signing Luis Diaz in January last season, which would have been an absolutely huge signing for us. You know, we've seen how he's turned out for Liverpool. So yeah, just got to give him the best opportunity to do what he needs to do at the club.
Craig, let's come to you. Roy writes here, I don't hang my hat on newspapers or mainstream media reports. I prefer to wait until it comes from the horse's mouth or a club statement. It's pretty much what you said to me on the phone earlier today. What have you made of all of these reports, and how confident are you that Antonio Conte is, number one, going to stay at the club, and 2, be backed in the January window?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's exactly my sentiment. So that's what I said. You know, this is one, perhaps 2 reports. It's unsubstantiated. We don't know. I think a lot of journalist stories are just trying to fill the column inches, so to speak. We don't know. They don't know fully And why would why would Daniel Levy or whoever come out and say, "Oh, we haven't got much money to spend," or why would they come out and say, "Oh, we got 200 million to spend"? You know, you wouldn't do either. So it's very, very strange. And for me, I want to wait till the end of January to see. You know, 1st of February, if we haven't signed anybody and Conte's unhappy, then fair enough. But I just don't think it's not even in my thoughts to think they're not backing him or Conte's unhappy or whatever it is until you know a bit more, until the end of that window, because you can't make an informed decision because none of us will genuinely know. Backing Conte, I agree, 2 or 3 players in January and the players that he wants in the positions he wants. You're not going to go and get somebody like a Bastoni or Guardiola or somebody like that. Unfortunately, I just can't see them moving mid-season, big names like that. But you give him a couple of players, like you say, like we got in the last window, I think everybody would be happy if the next 2 signings are as good as the 2 that came in January. So, you know, I think, you know, personally, I think we've got to give them the benefit of the doubt. We've got to give them the time. Trust Paratici. They've laid the groundwork for players that they want to get in, and let's hope they do get those players in. But I don't think you can assess it till after the window shuts.
Can I ask all 3 of you very quickly what positions are really key for you, and what positions you think Antonio Conte wants to fill? Because I've said it on this channel many, many times, right wing back for me, I think it's got to be number 1 on the list. But do you think it's number 1 on Antonio Conte's list? And also, I think that a new centre back would be you know, good to come in. A lot of people talk about creative midfielders, another centre forward. Craig, what do you think? What is the most important positions to fulfil for you?
Yeah, I agree. I think we've done it to death on this channel. Right wing back for me, if he's not going to give Jed Spence a run, I think you've got to, personally, I think you've got to look to move Emerson on and get in another right wing back, centre back definitely. Like a central centre back to challenge Dyer. And if it were me, I'd like to see a creative attacking midfielder, but that might be asking a bit too much. Somebody like a Maddison or something like that. But those are the 3 key positions, I think, that I would. You know, if you give me a magic wand, I'd say those are the 3 positions that
I should have said realistic.
Yeah, realistic. Two players probably. Probably a goalkeeper and a left back if it's realistic. No, look, they've got to look for right wing back, and they'll have to move a right wing back on to make space, because you can't have like 4. So wouldn't be surprised, you know, if you see Lucas Moura go out the door actually in January. Shame, because I love Lucas and what he did in that Champions League semi-final. We'll all remember for the rest of our days. But I think perhaps his time at Tottenham, as much as he loves the club, I think it's just perhaps coming to an end. But yeah,
Craig,
all right, realistic.
I've got to ask you, Craig, when we're talking about centre backs, links last week were well putting us towards Harry Maguire. Your thoughts on that?
This might surprise you, right? This might surprise you. I think you could do a lot worse, actually. I think. Harry Maguire, when he played for England, I thought he had a really good World Cup. Don't get me wrong, Chris, right? There are better out there, right? But I personally think Harry Maguire would do a job at Tottenham. I actually think he would, because the threat he is in the air from corners and the set pieces. Look, he's not my favourite centre-back in the world. In fact, I don't know who he is. Well, I do. The number 1 for me would be Guardiola. And I think the rest of the world has now seen how good he is. Yeah. And personally, I think we should have pressed to get him last summer. But you know what? Like Bastoni, if a player doesn't want to come for whatever reason, you can't force them to come. But getting Guardiola is going to be difficult. But yeah, would I take Maguire? If there was nobody else available and he was willing to come, I would take him.
Listen, do you know what? The only thing I'll say on this is Mitch said earlier, if we're going to try and win trophies, and I just think that signing players like Maguire is not the way forward if we want to be winning trophies. You really think Antonio Conte sitting down saying, who can we sign as a centre-back to win us trophies, and he's writing Harry Maguire down? I don't think so.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And like I say, if you can't get anybody else, would Maguire be better than? Would he be better than having nobody? That's all I'm saying. I don't know if that's what the right answer is there, what everybody else thinks. But, you know, is Maguire better than Tanganga, for example?
Yeah.
You know?
Melvin, who do you think is on the top of Antonio Conte's list in terms of positions?
You know, I think every single Spurs fan knows just as much as Conte where we need to strengthen. I think we watch these games so carefully and analyze every single game, you know, the right back, the center back. I think we should just trust that they're gonna do what needs to be done. I think I trust Paratici. You know, these reports, I don't believe for 1 second that the club isn't trying to strengthen in January, or there's no money, and I think things will happen in January. If it's to the level we want, I think, you know, Guardiola, you know, he's caught the eye of the world. You know, Real Madrid, Chelsea, all these big clubs are looking at him now, and I think club like us would get priced out. I think we're definitely in the market for a centre back, and people say or laugh at Harry Maguire. I don't see why people would laugh, because he would be an upgrade on Sanchez. He would be an upgrade on Tanganga, and he could be potentially better than Eric Dyer. You know, he starts for England in the World Cup. He would be a real asset to have in set pieces. I think the set piece coach probably has about 15 to 20 set pieces he could use Maguire in. So when people laugh about these signings, because on paper they're not the flashy signings, but if we bought Maguire for about 20 million and another 10 on add-ons, that would be a great signing.
I agree. I do agree.
If the wages were low, and let's say it frees up another 30 million to spend on the wing back and the creative midfielder, plus he would be homegrown. So people sometimes dismiss signings before they happen. You know, just look at Ben Davies in a back three. He thrives. You know, give players chance to work under Antonio Conte. So don't laugh about any signing coming into Spurs until you see either a few months of him working underneath our manager, or a pre-season. So any signings will be an improvement. Any signings, just like Bentancur and Kulusevski were. On paper, I watch a bit of Serie A and I knew about them, but I didn't think either of them would be this good. But so you just trust that Conte and Fabio know what they're doing. They know, they're so knowledgeable about the game, and they've worked together at Juventus. They know each other really, really well. They know how to build a squad, and they have this whole network of players and agents. And if they need players, they definitely, there's deals in the works that are probably happening right now. It's probably gonna end up, if the other team finds a replacement, it's gonna be this whole spider web of transfers in January, and we're gonna definitely end up with one or two. It's just how good and how quickly will they adapt to the Premier League, that we will never know. If they can adapt as quickly as Kulusevski and Bentancur did, would be amazing. I think that's the most important thing, rather than the profile of the signing. If it's a flashy name, I think people are in love with Bastoni, but you don't know if he's going to adapt quickly to the Premier League, because Bastoni would be one for the future. He doesn't even start with Inter all the games. He's in and out of the team. He's not in the best form. I think for us, I'd rather go for someone older who's more experienced, like Skriniar or something, that kind of profile, who's gonna hit the ground running, who's experienced, who's versatile. That's, I think, more of the profile that we need right now.
I agree with you, Melvin. I'm expecting 2 signings in the January transfer window. Can I just go around each of you and ask you what you think, or how many players you think we're going to sign? Because I'm expecting 2. But as I said earlier, I'm hoping that they're 2 players that walk straight into this starting 11 rather than squad players. And I think if they are 2 players that walk into the starting 11, we've got a great chance of keeping Conte and keeping him happy. Mitch, how many do you think?
Yeah, 2. And then hopefully if there's any other deals out and about in the market, an extra 1 to make it 3 if possible.
Yeah. Craig, how many do you think?
Yeah, ditto. I think 2, possibly 3 if something comes across his desk that they like the look of.
Yeah. Melvin, 2?
Yeah, the same. Obviously, also we have to think about the outgoings because I think we're on non-homegrown players. We're at our limit, so I think probably Gil or Tanganga could be sent out on loan or something like that.
Now, lastly, let's talk about the Brentford game that will take place on Boxing Day. We're the first game back after the World Cup, 12:30 p.m. kickoff. Mitch, let's start with you. Now, Brentford aren't in great form. They've won 1 in their last 6 Premier League games. They're sat in 10th place. We're currently 4th. We've played 15. We've won 9. We've drawn 2. We've lost 4. We've got a goal difference of +10. We've got 29 points. We're 8 points away from Arsenal at the top, 3 points away from Manchester City, who are 2nd, and only 1 point away from Newcastle, who are 3rd. Your thoughts on this game? Do you think that Spurs have got enough to go and win at Brentford on Boxing Day?
I think it's really, really dependent on who makes themselves available for the game. It depends if, we could still be without Lloris, Romero, Perisic. We'll be without Bentancur, Richarlison. That's a lot of key players that we will be missing for that game. So Brentford is not going to be an easy game. I think a lot of their performance will hinge on whether Ivan Toney actually plays or not, depending on the outcome of the whole situation with him. So I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in that sense. But I hate using the term banana peel, but the game just is, isn't it? First game back after a big long break, away to a tricky club, but one that you're expected to win. So it just everything. I don't know. It gives me warning alarms in my head for whatever reason. But if we turn up and we're on our game, we have the quality and the ability to be able to win, and it would be pretty huge for momentum and going into a run of, I think, 3 games in 9 days or whatever it is around the Christmas and New Year period. So it's a lot, but at the same time, it's pretty important to get a win, stay within touch and distance of the top 2 if we can, and more importantly, try and cement ourselves in that top 4 position and not fall out of touch with that as well.
Yeah, as you say, Mitch, it's a busy time coming up again. Of course, Brentford away on Boxing Day, and then on 1st of Jan, Villa at home. And then on the 4th, we've got Crystal Palace away. Then we play in the FA Cup against Portsmouth at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on the 7th. A week later, Arsenal at home. 4 days later, Manchester City away. That is a difficult week. Arsenal and Man City in the same week. And then on the 23rd, we play Fulham away. Craig, your thoughts on the Brentford game Boxing Day? Do you think that Spurs will be coming away with the 3 points? Because, of course, last season, we drew 0-0 there. Christian Eriksen, of course, was playing for Brentford. That turned out to be, a vital point there, in our bid to get top 4.
Yeah, it did, and of course they haven't got Christian Eriksen this season, but they're not to be taken lightly. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game, and have to hit the ground running. We are without quite a few big names, if you like. So other players are going to get a run, you would think. Be very interesting to see if Kane plays some part in that match. I don't actually expect him to start, but he might be on the bench.
You don't expect him to start? Why?
I don't know. Well, I'm just saying that because I don't know. He's obviously due back, but is he going to be in any physical condition? I know he was obviously been fit. He's been playing at the World Cup, but are they going to think his level of fitness? Does he, after the rest he needs? I don't know. I'd love to see him start, but I'm just not confident. I'm hoping he's mentally all right, because obviously that will have scarred him, and that's going to scar him for a while. But firstly, for me, the best way is to just get back on the horse as quickly as you can. So knowing Harry, he'll want to play. If he's back, he's going to want to start, and Conte will probably start him, but don't be surprised if he is on the bench. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Going to be a very tough game, and it's a horrible one, isn't it? 12:30, first game back, because that's always hard. I hate the early kickoffs because if it goes wrong, you're kind of watching the other games to hope the other teams lose, so you're not losing ground on them. But yeah, I don't like the early kickoffs, especially on Boxing Day. That's thrown everybody's Christmas plans up in the air, I reckon, a lot of the players. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one, but hopefully we'll have enough to get over the line.
Well, their last 6 games, they beat Brighton 2-0, drew 0-0 against Chelsea, lost 4-0 away at Aston Villa, drew 1-1 against Wolves, drew 2-2 against Nottingham Forest, and most recently lost 2-1 away at Manchester City. Melvin, how confident are you that Spurs will be picking up the 3 points on Boxing Day?
Our front three is going to be Son, Kane, Kulusevski. So that's a pretty strong front three. It's great to see. Yeah, I'm not confident, but there's definitely positives, going into this game. We'll see a pretty strong lineup, even though there's going to be, our club captain probably won't play, and it'll be interesting to see who he will name as captain as well, because it's not going to be Hugo. Is it going to be Kane or is it going to be Højbjerg? We'll give you like a little indication who he sees replacing Hugo as captain. Hopefully Kane plays. I'd like to see him play and get a goal within the first 10 minutes, and normality resumes with Kane. I think he's mentally strong enough, and he's been through quite a bit of these things for him, to pick up where he left off. And I think he'll play, and hopefully he'll score.
Well, lastly, score predictions for the game. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Spurs win. Melvin, what are you going for?
I think 1-0 Spurs.
Mitch, what are you going for?
I think I'll have 3-1 Spurs, Kane with a brace and Son with the other.
Score predictions?
2-0 for me, Tottenham.
Mitch, what are you going for?
Oh, I went 3-1 Spurs, Kane with a brace.
What about you, Craig?
2-0. 2-0, I think, Tottenham. I'll go.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this evening. Thank you so much for coming on this evening to talk about tonight's game and, of course, the transfer window and the Brentford game. Mitch, thanks so much for coming on, and tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me on. Just over on Twitter, mainly at Mitch_Fretton, and doing some work on live score writing for them as well. I'm sure some of you have the app anyway for that. So yeah, that's where I do all of my business mostly. Oh.
Well, I'm on Twitter as well. I don't post that much, but if you really want to follow me, see the link Chris sent out earlier. I'm at Dearman9. So if you really want to follow me, that'd be great. But always a pleasure to come on these chats. And may I wish all the viewers a very Merry Christmas. And I think I'm back on here on Boxing Day after the Brentford game. So hopefully we'll be talking about a Spurs win. Let's hope anyway, hey?
Yeah,
always makes for a better Christmas.
It does.
You can also find me on Twitter. You're usually talking only Spurs and arguing with Arsenal fans and trying to defend Kane and being in all that funny banter online. And you should know that Chris is probably outside the stadium right now because he went to the match, and this is also his preseason. Before the stretch of games. Chris, you started your preseason, as well, just like the Spurs players.
I tell you what, I think my Wi-Fi this evening is about as good as Ramon Vega's, so apologies about that. I was saying, Mitch, thanks so much for joining us on the channel for the very first time. I hope you enjoyed it, and please tell everyone where they can find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me on. And I did tell them, but I'll tell them again because you've given me the opportunity over on Twitter at Mitch Fretton and doing some writing for Live Score. But yeah, thanks for having me on, mate. It's been real good fun.
Thank you very much. And Craig, thanks so much as always.
No problem, Chris. No problem. I did tell everybody where they can find me if they're that interested in what I put on Twitter. So look, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to coming on here talking about hopefully a Spurs win on Boxing Day. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Again, take care of yourselves.
And Melvin, I don't know whether you told everybody where they can find you, but if you have, tell them again.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. You can follow me if you want, and yeah, I just discuss usually just Spurs stuff and vent my feelings. And yeah, come on, you Spurs. Hopefully we have a couple, 2 more games, 2 victories, and end the new year with 6 points.
Well, Craig, Melvin, Mitch, thanks so much for your time this evening. Everyone, thanks for all of your support. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. And I will be back tomorrow with another show with a journalist talking all about the January transfer window and the possibilities of the signings in January. I hope you've enjoyed today's show, as I say, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, come on, you Spurs.